from Homestead Corner. Today I thought we'd go over 10 dangerous mistakes that we could make in food stores. So after we put all that time and effort into purchasing these foods and figuring out what kind of foods we want to store in our pantries, whether it be just your regular pantry, your prepper pantry, remember all that work that's gone into it and the money and effort and time, we do not want to be wasting that. We want to make sure that we are doing the best we can for our food storage so it's going to last as long as possible. These are in no particular order. One is probably not worse than the other, but they all, I think, are extremely important. So I have numbered them 1 to 10, but they're not necessarily in that order. So the first one is not using the right containers for the right food. A lot of times we'll use the container that we have. We need to remember that certain foods need certain types of containers to give them the longest life and shelf life possible that they can have. Whereas some foods you want to be airtight, other foods you're going to want to have a little bit of airflow and circulation. Like you're going to store probably some fresh onions and potatoes, and those need circulation, whereas dried foods and canned foods and things like that, you want to make sure they're airtight. So you just want to remember to use the right kind of container for the type of item that you're storing. Number 2, this is a biggie. A lot of people don't realize that sunlight destroys your food. You want to keep your food storage in a dark place. That sunlight, it degrades nutrition, it can change the color of your food. It really can degrade the nutrition so much that you're not really getting anything out of it. So you want to make sure that your food storage and all food storage, I've never come across any food that needs to be put in sunlight. It all needs to be in a dark place so it can have the longest, best shelf life. So you don't want to store it in a room that's bright and sunny. If you're using a spare room or something like that, you want to close those windows off, get the dark curtains, get as much natural sunlight out of there as you can. Another mistake, I think, is buying foods you don't like. If you don't like the foods, you're not going to rotate through them. They're going to get pushed aside, and eventually they're just going to go bad. And then you've wasted your money and your time and effort. And you really buy the foods you like. Buy what you like and eat what you buy. You want to keep that food moving and make sure that you're getting the best nutrition for what you have available. Number 4, food rotation. A lot of people will stick their food in the cabinet. It won't get rotated, and that is no good for your food. You really want to make sure that you're rotating that food constantly and you're, checking the dates. Food storage requires constant checking on it, maintenance. When you are eating through a whole bunch of one thing, you want to make sure you're replacing it, and you also want to make sure that other things aren't getting pushed aside and forgotten about. So you want to go through your food storage at least, I go through it at least bi-weekly, every couple of weeks, usually twice a month. Sometimes it only once a month I'll get in there and really look around, but I try to keep a close eye on what's going down quickly, what I need to replace, and making sure that food is rotated. When I go to grab food and bring it to the working pantry, I want to make sure that I'm grabbing the oldest of those products so I can get those eaten up. I don't want them to go bad. I don't want them to lose nutrition, and I want to eat those older products first and keep that food rotating and flowing constantly. Number 5, another big mistake is storing food in a really humid area. If you are storing your food in, let's say, your laundry room is really humid, your metal cans and lids and stuff, they're going to rust and that rust is going to cause all kinds of problems. It can cause leaks and holes, and you're going to lose food that way. You don't want to store it in a humid area. And if you've got dry goods in there and your seal pops or something like that, you're going to get mold if humidity gets in there. So you really want to make sure that you're not storing your food in a really humid area. You want it to be dry and dark. Number 6, putting your food storage in areas that have huge temperature swings. So if you have an unheated garage or something like that, and you're putting your food storage in there, your food, the temperatures can go way down into freezing and way up during the day, and those drastic changes are going to wreak havoc on your food. It is not going to last as long. It causes all kinds of problems. It can have your food spoil. It can lose nutrition. Your seals can pop if you've got home canned goods in there. Attics are another place that I've heard people putting their food, and if it's not like a controlled, heated and cooled and stuff, you want to keep it consistent within 5 to 10 degrees. You know, our food storage area runs around 60 to 70 degrees, pretty much stays at 65 most of the year. It runs right in those temperatures. There's no drastic changes. Even in the winter, it stays about that warm, and in the summer, it doesn't get much warmer. So we like to pay attention to that. And I've even put a fan down if it gets too obnoxiously hot, or if it gets too humid, to help bring that humidity down. But that's something that I think is important, is you don't want those huge temperature swings. You don't want it sweltering hot one day and -5 the next day. That can just cause all kinds of problems, and you don't want to lose all that food. You have worked hard. That's a lot of work to get all this together. All right, number 7, not drying your food thoroughly. A lot of people do home dehydration. We're dehydrating our own food, and we want to make sure that we get that food dry enough before we package it. A lot of times, like if you want to eat apple chips, a lot of times you'll leave them a little gummy, and that's great if you're going to keep it in the kitchen where you're going to eat it right away. If you seal that up and they're a little gummy and you put that in a mason jar, that is a breeding ground for mold, and it's just going to go bad. You want to make sure anything that you're storing dehydrated, you want it to be crispy, crispy dry, so it snaps when you bend it. You want it to break and snap. Food storing it is a lot different than, you know, you want your jerky in the kitchen, you want it to be a little pliable and leathery, and you don't want it to snap, but you don't want to take that and close it up for a long time and put it in your food storage, and then go check on it a year later and it's just filled with mold and destroyed, and that's no good. You want to make sure that you're drying it enough for how long you're going to be storing it. Number 8, leaving your canning rings on. When you can, you've got a lid and a ring, and after 24 hours, you really should be taking those off. I know some people leave them on, and I think it's their choice to do that. Definitely your kitchen, your rules. I do 100% believe that. But when I'm looking at long-term storage and I'm putting up 50 jars of tomato sauce or fruit or jam or whatever I'm putting up, I want those lids off. I do not want them on there, because when I put that jar into storage, the ring can have liquid in it, it can get trapped in there, which is going to cause your lids to rust, your rings to rust. You're going to have a hard time getting it open. You may pop a seal. I have had jars come unsealed before. I have always taken my rings off because that's the way I was taught. But honestly, if you leave your rings on, I had a whole case of beans one time because I used lids that I wasn't familiar with, and they were a great deal, and I lost a whole case of beans that I canned. Every one of them, within 2 to 3 weeks, the seal popped and the lid came off. If I would have had rings on there, I wouldn't have known it. So if that lid pops just a little bit and then seals back down and it feels like it's sealed, if that ring's on there, it can reseal, and then you've got bacteria in there. And then you're gonna get sick. You don't wanna eat that. If you don't have your rings on and one of those lids popped, it can't seal back down. And you know it. Either it's gonna start stinking, there's gonna be mold in it. I go over all my jars, take a quick look, make sure. I'll randomly pick up jars by the lids just to make sure those lids stay solid. You want them to stay intact. And without the rings, you're 100% sure that your food is sealed correctly and it's safe to eat. Number 9, not labeling food when you put it up. That is another big mistake. You want to label, when we buy food at the grocery store, it's got an expiration date on it. And that's a guide for us. Some people will not eat it past the expiration date. Some people will eat it a year or 2 after the expiration date. Some will still eat it 10 years later. But those dates on the cans, when we buy that at the store, those dates help us keep our food in good rotation. We can see by the dates what needs to be eaten up first. If you are packaging up your own food, your pastas, your rices, beans, if you're home canning, anything like that, either putting a date you want to eat it by or putting the date on it that you actually made it is going to help you know which ones to eat up first. Because a lot of times we are not going to run out of something before I add more to it. So I may have 10 cans of carrots downstairs that I home can, and I may add another 20, 30 cans to that. You know, at any moment, if I'm down to 10 cans, I'm going to add more. But I need to remember which ones I need to eat first. You know, I want to make sure to eat those older ones up first, because the longer it sits, the less nutrition it's going to have. And, you know, we want to make sure that our food is as fresh and nutritious as it can be. And number 10, not putting food in different locations. If your home is looted, but in an emergency situation, people may come when you're not home. Someone may break in and rob you, or they could break in and try and take your food from you. If your food is all in one location, you are not going to have anything left. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Remember, split it up, move it around, even if it's some in one room, some in another, you know, some's under a bed, some might be in a closet. It's wherever you can put it. You want to put it, you know, in a cool, dry place if possible, but you also don't want it all in one place. If it's all together and something happens, you could lose all of your food. Whether you put some at another location, in another room, whatever it is that you're able to do. I know not everybody has another place, and you can't always say, oh, I've got, you know, 5 years worth of food here and 2 years worth of food here, and it's different for everybody, especially if you're in a small apartment or something like that. Split that food up around the area, you know, put it in totes under the bed, put it some under the couch, different places you think people aren't going to look for it. You've still got something so your family can survive. And that is the name of the game. We want to be able to survive, and that's the reason people prep, is to make sure that we can get through, make it to the next stage, whatever it is that you're prepping for. It's survival. Always in the end, it's so we can move on to the next part. And that's it for today's video. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Bye!